Hi, in this video I'm going to talk about spinning your wheels, and something that it's a phrase that I hear in one way or another in internet marketing a lot, because it's really easy to spin your wheels. And what does that mean? It means just exactly that. If you're doing a car, you're spinning your wheels but you're actually getting nowhere, and in internet marketing actually that's reasonably good. Quite often spinning your wheels in internet marketing means you're actually going backwards, because the web progresses at a phenomenally fast rate. Since I started in '95, the number of websites has grown exponentially, the number of pages on the web has grown exponentially, the number of searches and internet users has grown phenomenally. And so if you did something in even a couple of years ago, it's basically gone backwards unless you've done something else to do it. So what does that mean? And today's video is unusual for me in that normally I'd follow the slides and read them out, but this is a little bit more off the cuff, but hopefully more useful, or at least as useful. So let's go with it. Start by working out where you currently are, because that obviously is quite useful. It's actually really good to take a step backwards, as in literally stop what you're doing, almost watch what you're doing yourself. So STEP and NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, would call it disassociation. What that means is you actually observe what you're doing yourself. And if that's difficult, and for some people it is, then get a trusted friend to help you instead. That works a treat, because they'll see things and they'll say, you've been doing that for ages, why are you doing that? And why is a fantastically good question. So if you're not sure where you currently are, and that could be the case, or if you're not sure whether what you're doing is right, we'll come on to that a little bit later, asking the question why is really good. So why are you doing that? So let's start with why, not just working out where you currently are, but actually why are you doing internet marketing? Is it to raise a few tens or hundreds of dollars a month for occasional bills or treats? Is it to replace a job that you're in but don't really like? Is it to replace a job you had but you no longer have? Is it because you're older than you ever thought you'd be and you actually need something to do with your time? All perfectly valid reasons, and lots of other ones as well. And it could be you're at the other end of the spectrum and trying to pay your way through college. But work out your reasons why, or at least a few of them. And again, whatever springs into your mind immediately is as good as any, because first thoughts, even though you might later dismiss them because we tend to overanalyze, first thoughts are often the most accurate. The other part of this is not just why you're doing it, but it's what are you currently doing. So again, take stock of what you've got. Have you got websites? If so, are they yours, where you're paying for the domain and the hosting, or are they third-party websites like YouTube and Tumblr and all sorts of other things, or even just a Facebook page? And in this part of the process, don't just do the stuff that you're working on day by day. Do all the other stuff that you started but let languish, but you're still paying the hosting on, you're still paying the domain name charges for, you still got your page and Facebook haven't unpublished it yet. All of those, and spend a bit of time. This is worth spending maybe an hour, maybe 2 hours on. Don't spend days or weeks on it, because that's just an excuse to procrastinate. But do yourself a list. Quite often, if I'm doing this, I'll do a spreadsheet, because I can just do that and then I can put an extra column in that says priority. And it could be you've got 4, 5, 6, 7 different half-finished projects that are all roughly in the same theme. What about consolidating them? Used to know a person who used to wholesale different things. He'd buy them wholesale and sell them to basically retailers. So he was a wholesaler. But one of the things he admitted was that he always bought leather stuff, purses and wallets and things like that, and they weren't particularly stuff that he could sell to his customer base. It was just because he kind of liked them. So he'd ration himself on those because they just stayed in stock and then got thrown away eventually. And if that's the case with you, it's worth looking, and it's worth working out whether some of those projects could be consolidated, whether they're all just the ones that are like those purses and wallets that are just there as distractions, and in which case maybe even just bite the bullet and knock them on the head. And that's part of deciding where you want to get and when. So Having a destination is good. If it'd be like going on a road trip and just saying, well, I'm just going to turn left and then right every other turning or whatever, I'm just going to go straight as much as I can and I'll follow the interstate until I see a sign that interests me. Now, okay, that can be a good road trip, but on the other hand, if you haven't got a destination, how do you know when you've got there? So that's the next part of the equation. Decide where you want to go to and put a time scale on it and put some kind of yes, I know I've got there in it. And I suggest for the timescale that it's not too far away. It's very easy to do a 1 year or a 5 year or 10 year plan, but it's less easy to stick to it. No problem doing that size of plan, but split it up into smaller things. So if you've got a 1 year plan, split it into 12 monthly plans and possibly even 52 weekly plans so that you know what you're doing, not necessarily today, but certainly this week. And you can monitor yourself because it's a lot easier to stay on track if you do that. If you, for instance, if you decided you've got a year's plan and you split it into monthly, well, okay, today's the nth of the month. It happens to be a 10th when I'm recording it, but that doesn't matter. You're thinking psychologically, well, I've got another 20 days left. Or if it's the first of the month, you're thinking I've got another 30 days left, give or take. And therefore, it's another excuse to procrastinate, to put things off. Whereas if you're weekly, you've only got 7 days left at most. If it's daily, you've only got 24 hours left at most. Work out what works best for you to be able to split it. And again, it's worth spending a bit of time thinking about it and working out what your plan is and breaking it down into logical steps. And then you can actually work out which steps are critical and which steps can happen almost at any time. And that's this whole degree is doing that. It's critical path analysis. What's the roadblock? For instance, if you're building a house, obviously you're going to need the plot to put it on. You need planning permission probably to build it. Then you're going to need the foundations. And before you can put the foundations in, you actually need to dig out the hole to put them in. And to do that, you need the digger. So your critical path on that, on building a house, is obviously getting the plot, getting the planning, but then it's making the foundations for it. And that's what you're doing in internet marketing business as well. It's making the foundations for it, working out what you're going to do, and quite often those foundations, and if you look at the houses down your road, can you see the foundations? No, because they're underground. But without that, the houses wouldn't be standing upright. We can see that with places like Leaning Tower of Pisa, where the foundations weren't obviously quite as foundational as they should have been. But it stood, so in that respect, that's good. So work out where you want to get to. Get yourself a plan. As I said, I find a spreadsheet really good because you can shift stuff around, you can mark it off. Whereas I find if I'm messing around in Word or whatever, it takes longer to do the formatting than it does to actually type anything. Whereas a spreadsheet, I can move a cell really easily. I can just open up a new line, copy and paste, get rid of the old blank line. Simple. Job done. I can add a column in for priorities. I can mark off when I've done them. If I want to get really complicated, it can then filter stuff. But basically, just decide where you want to go. Give yourself a deadline, and then pick a way to get there. Now, that's part of that previous process as well. And it's part of the problem with internet marketing. There are so many ways to get there. You could do videos like this one. You could do forum posts, less so nowadays, but you can do Facebook group posts instead. You could do tweets. You could do articles still. That's pretty much doesn't really work very much, or at least not in its traditional format. But if you do it as a guest post, that's still article marketing. It's just in a slightly different format. It's not on an article farm. It's on someone else's website that may or may not be any good. Could be paid for advertising, so it could be Facebook advertising, could be Google AdWords, it could be banner ads somewhere, could be all sorts of things, could be solo ads if you're in the right industry, could be a lead generation program, some of those around, some that work, some that don't. But pick a way, or pick several ways. Pick one way that you're really going to focus on and test. And as part of the next bit, follow it. Because again, it's really easy to get distracted. Think about all the stuff that you've started in the last week or month or year. How much are you still doing? How much of it worked but you've stopped doing? That's a biggie for me. I'll quite often be chatting to someone. I'll say, oh, that works. And they'll say, well, how much are you doing? Or, you know, when did you last do it? And you stall. Because for whatever reason, and humans are really good at that, you stop doing it. A bit like following a diet or giving up smoking or cutting down on drinking or doing all sorts of other things, or exercise. Yeah, I sort of did it and then got out of the habit. It takes, all the self-help books will tell you between 14 and 28 days to make a habit, and studies are done and it's actually probably nearer double that. It's 28 to 56 days, 1 to 2 months. That means you've got to force yourself to do it for quite some time before suddenly it's routine and you just do it. Long time ago I decided to listen to a meditation track at the end of the day, and it took me a while to get in that habit. But now, most days I do it without really thinking. I'll just get in bed, set the CD playing, drift off to sleep. And that works for me. But it took a long time to get in that habit. Now I almost miss it, or do miss it, if I don't do it. So picking your way, and again, it's better to have 1 or 2 ways than it is to have 100, at least to start with. You can't focus on 100 different ways. You can't even focus on 10 different ways. It's not possible. Try staring at 10 different things that aren't completely aligned, and if it's internet marketing, they won't be completely aligned. You just can't do it. You can't focus on Facebook advertising and retargeting and video creation and podcasting and PDF document marketing and Twittering and keeping your LinkedIn profile up to date and keeping in touch with your email marketing. You can't do every single one of those simultaneously. You can do them step by step, and you might decide that yes, you're going to do that in a rota. You might do, well, today I'm going to do emails and I'm going to actually write the next 7 emails for my campaign, and I'll just put them in sequence and my autoresponder will send them out when I want to. Personally, I don't like doing that. I actually prefer the immediacy of writing an email most days. It means that I miss days, and that's probably not as good as it should be, but it means that it's stuff that works for me. Pick a routine that works for you, though, because that may not be the best way to do it. You might decide that actually it gets to midnight and you've not done today's email. So it's better for you to sit down and write 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 10, whatever it happens to be, emails, put them in sequence, let them just go out automatically. More difficult to do with something like Facebook or Twitter marketing, which does need a little bit more consistency. So difficult to, there's no fixed way to do it, but pick a way, get there, follow it, and then stay on track. And again, that falls in with the next bit, measuring results, but actually before you get to measuring results is measuring what you've done in the first place. Again, I find a simple spreadsheet or even a piece of paper, as long as it doesn't get buried on my desk, which is quite easy to do. I'm not the world's tidiest. But again, whatever works for you. If it's a notepad, do that. If it's a diary in your phone, do that, as long as it doesn't take you longer to type than it would to do anything else, and therefore that's another excuse to procrastinate. But stay on track, measure what you're doing, and then measure results from what you're doing. Now, measuring results, that takes an inordinate amount of time, because Google is adding, they think, upwards of 2 million pages a day of content on the web. Even though we'd dearly love it to index it immediately, it probably won't. It varies, and it has systems in place so that if it's a news site, it'll update it more regularly, and it also has systems in place that if it's a news item, it will bring it to the forefront of the results a lot quicker. And it's got all sorts of triggers within its computer program to do that. But generally speaking, if you're in a regular niche, for instance, I'm in self-help, so I put something up on meditation, that's not exactly news. I don't care unless it's someone famous has meditated and got some fantastic result, and then that's passing news. That's pretty much celebrity trash news. So that will show up in the results possibly immediately or fast, and then it's tomorrow's fish and chip wrapper here in the UK. So it's actually probably better to wait for Google to put it somewhere in the search results, and quite often what they'll do is they'll put it somewhere in reasonably fast just to test. Then they'll measure the response, because they've got enough, they can do A/B testing, split testing really, really big time, because they get so many search queries. So they'll put it there, and then they'll go off and think about it, or the computer will think about it. It just goes in the queue to be processed, and however many million pages later, and given that number is probably increasing, that queue's only going to get longer, I'm figuring it's 1 to 2 months now before anything actually shows up in the search results properly. Facebook, yeah, different. That's a conveyor belt. That's if it's not on your timeline when you go into Facebook, then 12 hours time you probably won't even see it. That's a different market. But if it's search results, you're looking at weeks or probably months before anything happens. And yeah, you can shortcut that a bit. You can do a video like this one that gets indexed faster, that gets shown faster. If you do it regularly, your subscribers get notified about it more often, so they'll come back and watch it. All sorts of other things, but just measure results and then adjust the course if necessary. Now, that's something that aeroplanes and ships do all the time. They know that they drift because there's air currents or sea currents that will take them off course, so they've got to adjust for it. Even if you're driving down the road, you'll notice that you don't necessarily stay totally within the dotted lines, within the side of the road and the middle of the road, or whatever. You drift within that. So you're adjusting course when you're driving, you're adjusting course when you're cycling, you're adjusting course when you're walking. You're even adjusting course when you're breathing. You might take slightly longer breaths when you need to calm down a bit. You might take shorter breaths when you think that it would help if you're a bit more worried. So adjust your course. Don't do that every day. Otherwise, you're back to spinning your wheels. You really don't know what's happening. But adjust your course as and when, and just comes back to measuring the results as well. If you've been doing Facebook marketing for the last 3 months and you've got no glimmer of a hope, then okay. Facebook may be quicker than that. YouTube, yeah, definitely 2 to 3 months at least. And this reminds me of another thing I read recently, that basically if I gave you the option of give you $1 today but it's doubled tomorrow and doubled the day after and so on, would you like that, or do you prefer $3 million now today? And which would you prefer in 30 days time? And it turns out that the doubling doesn't overtake the $3 million until something like 28, 29 days time. But then suddenly it's bigger. It's like the chessboard problem where you start with a grain of rice on the first one and it doubles each time. And by the 64th square there's actually more grains of rice than there are grains of sand on the world. So doubling or growing slowly, it appears as though you're getting nowhere. It appears as though you're treading water, because that's pretty much all you're doing. If you're growing slow, so you got one page view every few days, then it grows up to one page view every couple of days, and then one page view a week, a day, and then several page views a day, and then several page views an hour, and it grows up. And suddenly, where you were getting maybe 10 people page views on your website a week, you're getting that a day, and then suddenly you're getting a couple of hundred a week, and then that grows again. But that only works if you adjust course and if you do things consistently. If you start it and leave it to languish, chances are it won't do anything, because there's so many other million pages that are competing and they're doing something. Well, not all of them, not by any means all of them, probably less than 1/10 of 1% are actually doing anything properly. And that's all you've got to be. You've got to be better than 99.9% of your competition. And by doing something consistently, you probably are better than 99.9% of your competition. But only if you do it consistently, only if you know where you are, where you want to get to, and have chosen somewhere that you think will help you get there. And the other thing is, get help where needed, or when you need it. And you do need help. We all need help at times. When you're a toddler, you needed help or encouragement walking. When you're driving, you needed lessons. You don't get in the car and instinctively know how to drive the thing. There's too many controls, too many things to do to be able to do that. And that means get help. And it could be the phone a friend, ask a friend. It could be put something up in a Facebook group. If you can do that, be specific. Don't just say, oh, my website's not getting traffic, because that doesn't mean a thing. Be as specific as you possibly can be without giving away your niche, unless you don't worry about that. And get help. And if need be, pay for that help. That doesn't mean buy every new product that lands in your inbox every day. That's not getting help. That's just using some kind of band-aid plaster to cover up, or as an excuse not to do anything really, because, oh, I was learning that today. What are you doing today? Oh, I was learning a new thing. What are you doing tomorrow? I'm learning a new thing. Yeah, but when did you put those into practice? And if you didn't, if you bought them, learnt a new thing, but never put them into practice, or thought, I know that, and that's the other clue actually with new products. If you buy a new product and or two or three new products and you think, I knew that, 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 is it worth stopping buying and actually doing instead? Because you probably know at least as much as you need to know, possibly more, and that's actually the other problem. We tend to overanalyze, so if you kind of think you know more than you should know, that's also a clue. But get help when you need it. If you'd like to do that, there's a link below this video, and it'll actually just expand on what I've talked about. It gives you 3 questions to ask yourself, and then some ways that you could possibly answer, and then what to do once you've answered them. And that's the first step. It's kind of self-help, a bit like thinking I've cut my knee or whatever, where's the plaster, I'll stick it on. And most of the time that works, but if you need something more, if you've actually done something nastier, or if in the case of the website you're just spinning your wheels and you've spun your wheels for the last year or decade or whatever it happens to be, then move it. Choose what you want to do, get help when you need it, but above all, do it. So click that link below the video or drop me a message and do it. And enjoy yourself while you're doing it as well.